Here we looking at 4 cosine x less than or minus 1 less than or equal to 0. We've already got everything on one side and 0 on the other. So I'm going to go ahead and let that be my f of x. And so I need to look for domain issues. And there are none. And then I look for the zeros. So I get 4 cosine x minus 1 is 0. Isolate the trig function as we've done before. Cosine x is a quarter. And since that's not one of the common angles, I use the arc cosine function. And proceeding as we did with the equations, I either get the arc cosine of a quarter or 2 pi minus that. And then I would add multiples of 2 pi. But we're only interested in the interval 0 to 2 pi, so these are my two values. Okay, so I'm going to go up there, put them on the sign diagram. Once again, I start at 0. I go over but do not include the 2 pi. And I'm going to put these values on there. So arc cosine of a quarter, and then 2 pi minus arc cosine of a quarter. And at both of these values, the function is 0. So I want to make a sign diagram for the f of x. So I want to pick values in here, or otherwise talk about the signs. And once again, in this interval, I can go ahead and pick 0. The f of x is 4 cosine x minus 1. If I plug in 0, I get 4 cosine 0 minus 1, which is going to be a positive 3. So that's a positive then in there. An angle between arc cosine of a quarter and 2 pi minus arc cosine of a quarter. Well, arc cosine of a quarter, by definition, is an acute angle in quadrant 1. So 2 pi minus that acute angle is going to be in quadrant 4. So I can pick anything in there. I could pick pi. Pi will work. It's going to give me a negative 5. And now I got to figure out something to plug in here. Okay, so we can go back to unit circle and do an analysis there. So on the unit circle, I don't know what's going on here. The arc cosine of a quarter, by definition, is going to be an angle whose cosine is a quarter in quadrant 1. So there's, say, a half. I'll say that's a quarter. So that's the arc cosine of a quarter. And so if I take 2 pi minus that, there's 2 pi minus arc cosine of a quarter. Okay? So now I want to figure out an angle between there. And I can pick any angle whose cosine is bigger than a quarter. So, for example, I could pick where cosine is a half. So if I look where cosine is a half, that's our friendly pi over 3. So I could go around to 2 pi minus pi over 3, which would be 5 pi over 3. So I can pick him. So I plug him in. I get 4 cosine 5 pi over 3 minus 1. The cosine of 5 pi over 3 is a half. Half of 4 minus 1 gives me 1, so that's positive. Or once again, you could graph this function and get the sign diagram that way. And solve it graphically, okay? At the end of the day, though, for my final answer, I want to know where the f of x is less than or equal to 0. That's going to happen between the arc cosine of a quarter and 2 pi minus that. Since we're allowed to be equal to 0, and that's where it's equal to 0, that's my final answer. So that'll do it for checkpoint quiz 10.7.